So hello, everyone, and welcome to our July webinar. Last month, we hosted Grist 101, where we covered all of the basics of Grist. You can find a recording of that webinar, along with all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel under the Build with Grist playlist. A recording of this webinar will be added there as well sometime next week. So keep an eye out for that. In today's webinar, we are going to explore just a few of the custom widgets created by our community. There are so many out there, so take some time to explore them all after today's webinar. Details for all of the custom widgets that we will be looking at today can be found in our custom widget gallery, and that's what you see on your screen right now. Now, every widget in this list has some useful links included with them that I want to point out. The widget URL, here we go, this link here, so we're looking at the card in the upper right, there's the field that says widget URL. This is what you'll add to the Grist document to call that custom widget. We'll walk through those steps shortly. And then the other thing I really want to point out here is the context URL. So it's just to the right of the widget URL. And this is a link to wherever the creator showcased the widget. So typically you can find a lot of useful details about setting up the widget via the context URL. So I recommend checking that out for every widget. So the first widget that we are going to look at today is the HTML table and access rule report generator. So you can see a little GIF demonstrating what the widget looks like. Again, we've got that widget URL and the context URL. So we're going to follow the link to this context URL so we can see the original post. It was originally posted in the forum Grist, which is a French Grist community forum. So this page actually explains multiple custom widgets. Today, we're specifically looking at the tables and permissions widget. So I just highlight this and translate. This plugin allows you to generate a comprehensive report on the document's tables and advanced permissions, and the report is downloadable in HTML format. Short, to the point. So now let's actually use the widget. This forum post does contain links to the source code as well as the custom widget URL. So if you scroll down, this is a link to that source code. And then just below that is the URL for the custom widget. But again, we host that widget URL in this gallery too, so you don't have to go looking for it. I made a copy of the account-based sales team template to use as our example. This document obviously already has quite a bit of data, and it also has access rules set up. So it has everything that our report is going to generate, making a great example for this. All we need to do is actually add the custom widget to the document. So we're going to add it to a new page so it's separate. We select custom as our widget. Now for this particular widget, it does not matter what data set we select because it's going to look at all of the data as a whole. So you just select one of your data sets. We're going to create that new page. And this is where we use that widget URL. So I'm going to jump back to our custom widget gallery. The widget URL here, we're going to copy that. We'll go back to our example, and that's what we're pasting in this box. So that's what it's asking for when it's asking for that custom URL. And we're going to add the widget. It does give us warning, making sure, hey, this can read and write to your data set. Make sure you trust the source. Just double check what you're giving access to in your document. Now, the ones in that list are vetted by Grist. That's why we created the list, so you can feel confident in it. So I'm going to go and confirm that I understand the warnings and risks. So now all we need to do is give the widget access to our data. So here in the Creator panel on the right-hand side of the screen, if yours is not open, it's to open and close is this green vertical bar. And under access level, we want to give full document access. And that's it. That's all we have to do to configure this widget. So we can click tables to generate our table report. And now we can see our column. We can see the column type. We can see if there's a formula in that column, or if it's a choice or choiceless column, what are those choices? And we can see this breakdown for all of our tables. And then at the bottom, we do have a button to save our report. Again, it saves as HTML. And then this other button is to generate our access rules report. Click that, it generates. We see our user attributes table. And then below that, we see our table rules. So we see what the table is. If it's a column specific rule, it would list the column. And then it tells you what the rules are. Now, if you're like me and can't read French, it's not a big deal. Obviously, once the widget is set up, you can understand most of the data that is coming back to you. But the link to the source code, we're going to go back to that forum post. The link to that source code is listed there. We can follow that. There's a bunch of widgets composing this. We just go to tables and permissions. You can copy these two code files into ChatGPT, have it translated to any language. It's very quick and easy. I did this a couple days ago. I had it translated to English, and then I updated the date format to be the American format of month, day, year. And I've got that translated code saved. But because this original source code uses just a JavaScript and an HTML file, we can actually recreate it using our custom widget builder custom widget. We did a whole webinar specifically on that widget back in December. Our developer Yarick created this widget, and it allows you to write code directly in the widget rather than having to host a repository and do all of these extra steps. So I have the source code here that's translated to English, and I'll walk you through how easy it is to just create a new widget with some translated code. So I'm going to add a new page, again with a custom widget. And again, for this widget in particular, you can select any data set because it's looking at all of your data. But now we're going to select the custom widget builder. And we'll add that widget. So it tells you what to do. Click Open Configuration over here on the right. And now you see that we have this tab for HTML and a tab for JavaScript. And that code for the tables and permissions widget comes in JavaScript and HTML. Perfect. Okay, so this was the original French code. And then here in my GitHub, I have the translated version from ChatGPT. So I'm just going to copy that. Okay, so that's the JavaScript. I'll paste that in. And then here's the HTML. Again, I translated this ahead of time. Copy. And we're going to paste that into the HTML. It really is just copying the code, sending it to ChatGPT, saying, hey, translate this to whatever language, and it'll spit it right back in the file, and you copy it from ChatGPT. It's very easy. Okay, so I've got it translated. I'll click preview, and now I can see it. When using the custom widget builder, make sure you save. So I click this save button at the top to actually save all of my code. And then the next thing we need to do is give it access to our document. We see the note, full access to the document is required. So I'll give it full document access, and now we're ready to go. Click tables, and it generates just like before, except now all in English. We can see the column header or field. We can see the column type. If the column has a formula, what is that formula? And if it's a choice or choiceless column, what are the choices available? And so I just have this lovely report for all of my tables that I can save. And then again, scrolling back to the top, we have our access rules. Same report. How much of Electron do you need to understand to use the custom widget builder? None. I have no concept of Electron. So all you need to do is either have JavaScript and HTML to copy or know how to write JavaScript and HTML. So it really is just write some HTML here, write some JavaScript, and then preview your widget. That's it for the custom widget builder. And again, if you want to build custom widgets using the custom widget builder, check out our custom widget builder webinar from December. Yarrick and Paul are two of our developers. They did the webinar on the custom widget builder, and they walk through the steps of how to set access level, how to do column mapping, all of that. So definitely check that one out. Now I'll share a link to this document. That'll go to this example document that has both the original French widget as well as the English translated custom widget. If you need the English translation, you can just go into that example, go to the tables and permissions page, and then click Open Configuration in the Creator panel on the right, and you can copy this code directly into your own document. This one's nice. It's really straightforward. It's easy to set up, especially if you speak French, because all you have to do is plug in that widget URL. You're good to go. Now, if you don't speak French, just plug it into ChatGPT. Again, you're just follow this context URL to go to that forum post, and then click the source link for the source code. You'll go to table and permissions, and then have ChatGPT or some other AI translate the API.js file and that index.html file, and then you'll plug those translated codes into the custom widget builder. So our next widget is a full viewer and editor for draw.io, which is a web-based diagramming program. It does require a bit more setup in Grist to be fully functional compared to the last widget we looked at. But overall, it is pretty easy to set up and start using. So in our community widget gallery, you can follow the link to see the original post via the context URL. And here the creator has some screenshots, also has the widget URL, and then most importantly, a link to GitHub. Definitely check out the GitHub page because it has everything you need to get this set up. The README is what you'll want to go through to build this in your own document, and we're going to be referencing back to this quite a bit in the example. So let's take a look at this in action. I built out an example using NASA's Space Launch System. So here on the right, we've got the diagram. So this is the draw.io custom widget. I drew it, and if I double click it, it'll actually open up the editor. And we'll walk through how to do all this. And then I've got a bunch of formula columns here. They're actually reading data from the drawing I created. So we'll walk through this from the beginning. It looks way more complicated than it actually is. So to start, all I have is this bill of materials. That's it. So first, we need to create a table for our diagram data. So I'm going to click Add New. I'm just going to add the widget to this page. We're going to create a new table called Diagrams. Now to start, we just need 2 columns. We'll do a description so we know what the drawing is for. And then we need a column to store the data from the custom widget. So we're just going to call that diagram. Now we can add the custom widget. So I'll add new, add a widget to this page. We're selecting custom, and we're selecting data from the diagrams table because that's where we want this to read and write data to. And then select by allows widget linking. So when I select a diagram in the diagram table, I want the drawing to update to show that specific diagram. And so now we need to enter that custom URL. If we go back to the README, it is right here. And again, it's always available in the community widget gallery under the widget URL. So we need to map our columns. To start, it's telling me it needs full access to this document because it needs to read and write from that diagram column. So I'm going to go ahead and accept. And then we need to map our diagram column. So we just select diagram from the dropdown. And now it's set up. Now we just need a record in our diagrams table. So I'm just going to call it diagram 1. And now I can double click for a new diagram. I'll expand. I'm going to close these sides so we have more space. Okay, I'm going to delete this little box. So you can import images from your computer. So I'm just going to import an image. It doesn't show you my computer file, so I'm just picking a file. Okay, so we've got a picture of the Space Launch System here. And then I'm just going to map my parts. So you have tons of options here on the left-hand side to like pick little shapes and arrows to do your drawings or diagrams. And you just start building. I'm can't talk and type. I'm using part names. Most people are going to use part numbers. It just changes your formulas later a little bit, but that's it. So you can click this little arrow and it'll create a link to the next box. You can select your little box. Okay, so basically I'm just creating little boxes to represent my drawing. Let me zoom out. So we've got these 2 solid rocket boosters that connect to the core stage. And then the core stage connects to the launch vehicle adapter, connects to the next thing, connects to the next thing. And so that's what I'm drawing with these little boxes. I didn't play with it too much. I feel like there's probably a way to do this right on the drawing and make it look really fancy, but I didn't spend that much time learning. Okay. Let me zoom out. And now we can see that I've got basically a box to represent each part. So we've got the 2 solid rocket boosters, you have the core stage, and then launch vehicle adapter, interim cryogenic, propulsion stage, etc. And so I just used the little boxes to represent them. Can table data be used to size or position graphic elements or label them? No. So you're actually making the drawing, and then the drawing is going to populate your table. So we've got that done. And so that all saved to my diagram column. But now that we've got that drawing, we can get into the fun with the formulas that looks at the drawings and then pulls that info out of them. So we're going to jump back to the README. And we're moving down to the interesting stuff section. So it's talking about how the drawing is XML, blah, blah, blah. You can come back and read that. But the key thing here, if you create a new column called XML, put the contents of extract XML.py in there, then you can do all these fun things. So we're going to do that first. We need a new column called XML, and we need to copy the contents from this file. So we'll go open that file. We just use this copy button. And then going back to our example, we need an XML column. And then we just enter this using the formula. So we have the equals key. And then we can paste the contents from that file right into this column. And now it's reading stuff from the drawing that we just created. Okay, so jumping back to that README file. Okay, now we can do all these fun things. We can list the vertices, the edges, find relationships between things. So we'll start with vertices. I'm just going to copy this formula. We'll add a new column. Again, entering the formula, just hit the equals key, and then we just paste it in. Next is edges. When you first look at this custom widget, it looks very overwhelming, but it really is just a lot of copy paste. I never use custom widgets because they always look so intimidating to me. So now with this webinar, I feel much better about it. They're less intimidating. It looks intimidating once you start reading it. You're like, okay, I can copy paste, and that's what most of these are. And now we want to list the relationships between things. Add a new column. Relationships. Again, we're just pasting that formula in. Now there's tons of other formulas down here. You can perform validation, compare diagrams. We're not going to jump into those today. But again, you just copy paste these formulas. So now that we have a list of parts in this vertices column, like if we open that up, we see the parts are listed. We can actually use that to list what drawing a part shows up in. So over here in the bill of materials, I want to know what drawings the solid rocket boosters appear in. So we're going to add a new formula column. I'll just call this parent. And then we're going to add a formula. Let me paste it in and I can just talk through what it's doing. Zoom in a bit. Okay. So this is looking at all of the diagrams in the diagrams table. And so for each one, it's going through and checking if this part name appears in the vertices column. If it's listed as a vertice, then that parent or that drawing will be listed here. Now, I just want to return a reference. So we're going to change the column type to reference. And it's going to do row ID, but we'd rather just know the description. Or right now, I just named it diagram 1. But let's update that. Let me zoom out again. I'll name it Space Launch System. Okay, and so now I know what drawing that this part shows up in. Now what we can also do is add a list of referenced objects. So right now we can see all of the objects in the list of vertices, but it's kind of hard to read. It doesn't really get us any more information about that part. So we'll just add a new column. And this one we can kind of cheat. Now that we have this reference column over here that's listing what drawing a part shows up in, we can go to lookups and pull that information. So I just want the part name. You have to do a little finagling on this because right now it's already given us the part name, but I want it to be a reference list. So we're going to change the column type to reference list. It's pointing at the bill of materials, and I want part name. As you can see, though, it's red, and that's because it's already returning the part name, so it's confused. A reference column needs to point to the ID. So all we have to do is take off the dot notation, and now it'll work. Okay. So now we have a list of the parts that are in this drawing. I'm just going to rename this to reference objects. And with that, really it's handy just because now you have the list of parts that are in this drawing, and I can just click this little link and learn more about that specific part. So it just makes it a little bit easier to get part information. Now, when you're building things, you want to be sure that all of your parts are accounted for, like BOM reconciliation. We can add a formula column to the bill of materials table that looks to see how many times a part is listed across all diagrams. So I'm just going to add a new column. This one's going to be called, we'll call it diagram quantity. And then equals, just pasting the formula again. So this particular one, all of these formulas that I'm using, the ones that we didn't pull directly from the README file, so like the referenced objects or like now diagram quantity, you can just have our assistant write them. So the assistant's right here. If you have the little pop-up appearing with the links, just close that. It'll collapse it, but it's covering the assistant right now. So over in the left-hand corner is the tools, and under tools is the assistant, and the assistant can write formulas for you. And that's how I had all of these formulas written to start. Definitely use that resource. You just tell it what you need and it'll come up with the formula. So this particular formula, let me zoom in a bit, is looking at the vertices for a diagram, and it's checking for this part name, and it's counting how many times does this part name appear in this vertices column. So for example, the solid rocket booster better appear twice for this drawing because it's listed in vertices twice. And that's all that this formula is doing. There we go. I'm going to center it. And now I can compare my drawing quantity to the quantity that is expected. And we can add a conditional formatting. Let's see. Just say if diagram quantity does not equal quantity, then we'll make the cell red. And obviously, a lot of them are red because we don't have drawings yet for those. But for the drawing that we do have, we have all of our parts accounted for. Now, finally, we have the cost for each part number. We can use that data to find the total cost for our diagram. It's a bit more of a complicated formula because, again, it needs to look at the vertices here to find the cost for each. So a solid rocket booster shows up twice in this drawing, so we need to count it twice. But this was the easiest way to have all the parts accounted for in the cost. So I'm going to add another column, cost, and I'm going to copy this formula once again. Again, this was written by the little assistant, so you can just tell the assistant what you need it to do. It'll write this formula for you. But basically what it's doing is looking at the vertices and then checking for the part name to pull that cost. Change that column type to numeric, dollar format, and now we've got the total cost for the drawing. Okay, now we actually have this all set up. I can show you how easy it is going forward. So again, you do the drawing and then it does all of this stuff automatically. So we're gonna just add a new drawing for the core stage. These are super easy drawings because not many parts to them. Okay, so let me import an image so you know what I'm talking about. And again, my computer files, I'm just selecting a file from my computer. It doesn't show that. Okay, so this is the core stage. It's this part of the rocket that's mostly orange. And let me just add my little diagram. I need instruction. Blanking on my part names. For those that might not know, this is actually what my last job was. I was building the core stage as a manufacturing engineer. So I used to do this, but way more in detail. Pretty fun time. What am I thinking? Okay, we'll save our diagram. Okay, all I did is create this little diagram across the bottom. And now we can see, okay, it's reading all this information. It's populating my parts. It's populating my cost automatically. If I come down here, I see that it's matching my diagram quantity to my bill of materials quantity. And now it's mapping the parent. So I have this separate bill of materials. And now if I do a drawing, it does all of this automatically. So like I said before, it does require a bit of setup, but overall, really cool once it's going. So I'll share a link to that final version of this document. Again, it's just copying a bunch of formulas from the README file. Once you have those set up, then you just tell the assistant what else you want. So like I wanted a list of referenced objects. I wanted the total cost for the drawing. And then down here, I wanted the diagram quantity. Parent, also an important one to have. But you can steal a lot of those from my example document too, feel free. All you need to do is change this table name. So if you don't call your diagrams table diagrams, just change that name. And then if you decide to do part number versus part name, definitely change that column name. But overall, a lot of copy pasting you can do to get this set up. And it's really fun. Once you start playing with it, you can probably do cooler things than I showed you. I stuck to those little boxes, but you can probably make it way more polished. Okay, so our last widget we are going to explore today is the batch email composer. This one we're going to build using the custom widget builder just to demonstrate that. So in our community widget gallery here, we can follow the link to the context URL. It was posted in our community. There's a link to a demo and there's a link to the code. So it was actually just updated this morning. Before you would only build it in the widget builder, custom widget builder, but now you can actually use the direct repository link. So you don't have to do all the steps to use the custom widget builder now for this one, but I will show you the steps because I wanted to demonstrate the custom widget builder. Okay, but in the README, you do have the steps for setup, both with the direct repository link and manual installation. So this is my starting point. I just have a contacts table, nothing special. There's a name, there's an email, and I have an indicator if the person's in management or not. Nothing crazy. So to start, we want to add a new custom widget to our document. I'm going to add new. I'm just going to add it to the same page. We select custom. We're going to select the contacts table. It needs to pull information from that contacts table. I don't need to select a select by though. It's just going to be pulling general information. And now this is where you would add that widget URL. But again, we're going to do this separate way to do the custom widget builder, just to show that off some more. Okay, so we've got the custom widget builder here. I'm going to add the widget. And now I need to configure it. I had mentioned this before about the saving. There's no auto saving. Always save changes before closing and refreshing the page. I just want to reiterate that. So we're going to open the configuration. And we go back to the source code. And it tells us what to do. So first, copy the HTML content, paste it into the widget. Okay. Copy that file. There's a handy copy button at the top. So you don't have to like select it all. You just click copy raw file. And we're going to paste that in. And then go back to see the next step. Next, it says copy the CSS and add it in a style section in HTML. Copying that. Do this right at the top. Again, if you don't want to do these steps, you can just use the widget URL. So I just pasted it. I'm adding the style tags around it. That's it. Okay. Go back, see what the next step is. And now I just copy the JavaScript content, and then you configure your widget. Okay, so JavaScript, just copying, pasting here. Okay, and now I can click preview. Make sure you save so it doesn't get deleted. And then we'll configure our widget here on the right-hand side in the creator panel. So first, it needs to read the current table, accept. And then next, we can configure columns. The only one that's required is the email column with the email addresses. And it sets it all up. You can do a content column. As you can see, it's populated. Close that so we can see more. So first, we need a reply to email. I'm just going to use support@getgrist.com. Now here, it's already pulling in all of my emails from this table. You can click the X if you need to remove some, but it's saying if you want to change this list, just use filters. So up here at the upper right, we click this filter icon. We can add a filter. So let's say I only want this email to go to management. I have this management column. I just want true values. And now it's filtered it down to just my management people, just by applying that filter. So that's a really easy way to get the list of people you want to send this email to. And then now you just enter your subject. And I will just paste my content. And then if you have additional recipients that you want to add, you can do that too. So I'm just going to add support again. And it's manually added that. And then all you do is compose email. So my default email is Gmail. And so it creates this in Gmail. I see that it's to my reply to email. And then it BCCs everyone that I've added. But it creates your email draft and you can just send it from your default email. Easy as that. I'm going to delete that. Awesome. And that's it for this one. This one's so easy. I will share a link to this example. And then again, remember that the creator did post a demo there as well. So you've got my example from the webinar, but there is a demo via this context URL. And again, on that custom widget, I took the long way around and I did the custom widget builder. So remember, you can just use the widget URL. You don't have to go through all the steps that I did for that particular one. So let's take a look at this one. This one actually, there's a couple Kanbans. Yeah, she is. Let's see, where is, okay. So there's two. We've got, that one doesn't have a little fun video, but this is the one, I think it was posted like July 10th or something. So it hasn't even been in the newsletter yet, but it's way cool. Okay, so let's follow to the context URL. This goes to the forum Grist. If, again, you're like me and don't speak French, you can go to our community forum. They posted it there as well. Just search Kanban, you'll find it. Here we go. And so it's got all of the information you need. There's an example, the source code, link to use it, everything you need, always. Okay, so here in the README file, it's in English and French. And it tells you some features, tells you how to install it. There's a few required columns. So let's create a new document. Okay. We need a status column with a choice type, task column, which is just text, and then a deadline date column. Okay. So we've got status, we've got task, and we've got deadline. Status is a choice column. Oops. I do actually have these saved off to the side. Annoying that it copies with my little things. We're not going to fix that though. You should assign colors to these because it actually helps with the widget. So to do, we'll make red with some white text. In progress, we'll make blue. White. Completed, it's going to be green and white. And canceled, black and white. Oops, black and white. It's that easy to set up. Okay, task is just like the name of the task, and then the deadline is a date column, whatever format you want. Got some sample data. Oh well, okay, we're just gonna skip the colors. And then you just add the custom widget. Add a widget to the page, we select custom, build on table 1, and add to page. And we go back, choose the customized URL option, copy this URL, paste it in, and add your widget. Obviously, we've got that warning again. And then we have to map our column. So first, it's asking for full access, accept, map your status column, map your task column, map deadline. It's got a bunch of other stuff that's optional. So you can check out the README and the example and see all of that. I'm just demoing how easy it is to set up. And because I don't have colors, these backgrounds don't have colors, but when you add a color to these choices, let's add one to completed. Didn't update. Maybe if I refresh, there we go. Now it's got green, and you can change the order that these appear. You can also do some other configurations. So obviously you can add a task directly on the widget, and you can move the task directly on the widget. But one thing to also note is you can open configuration and do so much more. So you can look at column behavior. If it's done, you can, cards in this column are considered as over. You can use confetti, tons of cool options all the way through. So do you want to tilt your cards? Do you want compact rendering read-only? If you don't want the Kanban to be editable where you can drag and drop and add new tasks, you can mark that. It's all there. So make sure you save your changes when you do all that, apply. But it's that easy to set up. So cool. So polished. Love it. Again, the link to this is in the community widget gallery, Kanban. And as you see, it's from July 10th. So it's there. You can get the widget URL and you can get the context URL. Again, the context URL will go to the French community forum, but there was a post as well in our community forum. Well, thank you guys. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you're intimidated by custom widgets, don't be. I was, and then once I started playing with them, it's way easier. Thank you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.